Today I'm going to talk about three things. Executive presence, what it is, why you need it, and how you can begin growing it today. I'm going to share with you two tools. These tools were created as a direct result of my working with hundreds of senior executives that had had significant, really phenomenal career accomplishments that were continually getting passed over for promotions. The first is the clarity framework, and the second is high impact storytelling. Before we begin, I want to paint a picture, women of Microsoft, of what this means to you. Like, why is executive presence important? Imagine that you are a senior director and you're applying for the position of VP and you want it. I mean, you really want this position. And hundreds of people applied, both internally and externally. The top 8 candidates were chosen, and you're one of the 8. And these 8 are going to be interviewing in front of a panel of 5. Here's what I know about all 8. They're all extremely bright, talented, senior directors that have had significant career accomplishments, or they wouldn't be here. They'd be one of 192 no's. Given that all things are equal, all 8 candidates are equally bright and talented, who wins? There's only one that moves up to the position of VP. Who wins? More often than not, and if you're a senior leader, you'll know what I'm talking about. There is one shining star. There's one standout candidate and obvious choice. And the 7 others are a distant second. So who is it? It's the person that wows them, can answer any question that the panel asks with confidence, clarity, and conviction. Now, the key here is clarity. A lot of people, maybe you, when they get nervous, they have a tendency to talk really, really fast and ramble. And maybe what they're talking about answers the question and maybe it doesn't. Clarity is key. Here's the perception of people that ramble, people that tend to talk a lot. Colleagues, managers, leaders think that they are unorganized in their thinking and therefore their work, or that they're avoiding the question. Neither is good. On the other side is what we call the undersharer, people that really don't like talking and will answer a question with 1 or 2 words, which typically doesn't answer the question at all. The perception of people that are undersharers, people that don't talk a lot, is that they're withholding information or they don't know what they're doing. Neither is good. So imagine that you are standing there, see yourself in front of that panel of 5, answering any question that they ask with crystal clarity, and not only sharing the right amount of information, but sharing the right information, the most important and compelling ideas, themes, metrics, hitting it out of the park every question. I'll share with you 2 questions that a C-suite at a tech giant that I work with asks. These are 2 questions that he asks every person. Tell me about a time that you changed your mind and why. These are his gatekeeping questions. Tough question. Tell me about a time that you felt enormous pride that has nothing to do with work. Tough questions. So you're standing in front of this panel, answering any question that comes at you with crystal clarity and impactful information. That is the power of the clarity framework, one of the tools that I'm going to teach you. By the way, these 2 tools, the clarity framework, high impact storytelling, were developed by me, and we've never published the information. We've never shared it. It's our trade secret, right? So I'm really excited to be sharing it with you publicly for the first time today, because normally it's just our clients. The second tool, high impact storytelling, how to capture their attention and keep it. When you're going for a promotion, they want to know about successes that you've had in your current role. Tell me about a time that you had an initiative that had phenomenal impact and reach. What did you do that will make you the standout candidate? 2 clients that I work with, by the way, every client that I'm going to tell you about today, these are real people and real stories. First client, he was a VP. VP of Finance, I work with a lot of financial professionals, always getting passed over for the position of CFO. And they would ask him, tell me about a career success. And his career success was, yeah, I helped the last company that I worked with to increase margins by 2%. What do you think of that? In talking to him, here's what he really did. I helped save a 70-year-old company from bankruptcy, keep 1,700 local jobs here in Seattle by increasing margins by $10 million. Which is better? I mean, the first statement or the second? How to capture their attention and keep it, and highlight your career successes. Example number 2, Sam. Talented senior software developer, always getting passed over for promotions. I'm not going to even tell you the before and after because he didn't really have the before. Here's what he accomplished. His statement. I accomplished in 14 weeks with a team of 30 within 18 months, developing and releasing a new software that resulted in 20 million plus in sales. That is what he accomplished. Now, we did it with a team of 3, right? But this is his career accomplishment. Whenever Sam told the story, he would just talk, he was all over the board. He would talk about all of the people on the team of 30. He would talk about they had 4 developers and a UX person and a program manager and a product manager. He would go on and on. It took me, with both Alex and Sam, 2 full hours, 1 hour at a time on 2 different days to understand what they really achieved. Sam was so rambling in his backstory that he never got past the first gatekeeper. He would never be one of the 8. Here's the thing. All of the preparation in the world won't help without the right tools. Most people think that the power to move up in their career, to drive their career in a certain direction, lies outside of themselves. It's in the hands of other people. And the visual that I have for that is, that's kind of like you're being in a boat, like in the middle of Lake Washington, without a motor, stuck, powerless. Learning, practicing, and mastering these tools is like putting you back on the boat with a 240 horsepower motor. And now you have the ability to drive your career in whatever direction you want it to go. 95% of the power is now within you, right? That's the power of executive presence and learning these tools. What is executive presence? Forbes uses 2 words 3 times in one very long sentence to describe executive presence. It's the ability to inspire confidence among your subordinates that you're the leader they want to follow, to inspire confidence among your colleagues and peers that you're reliable and capable, and most importantly, to inspire confidence among those senior to you that you are capable of achieving great things. I call it a quiet but unmistakable confidence and authority. Some of my clients really push back on the notion of confidence. They're uncomfortable with the word confidence. When I talk about the distinction, confidence means that I believe in myself. And let's face it, if you don't believe in you, others won't either. It's a good thing. Arrogance means I think that I'm better than you. Confidence is never arrogance. Forbes then goes on to name 7 qualities of executive presence. Have a vision and articulate it well. That's communication. Understand how other people perceive you. Emotional intelligence. Build your communication skills. Obviously, communication. Become an excellent listener. Communication. Cultivate political savvy. Emotional intelligence. And don't let your appearance be a distraction. All of these things that Forbes names falls into 2 categories, just 2. And those are communication excellence and emotional intelligence. So that is what executive presence is. A lot of people think that it's this undefinable, esoteric it quality. No, it's not. That's what it is. Why do you need it? Having it opens the doors to opportunity. Possibility puts you in the boat with a motor. Not having it means that you're left behind, you're left out, okay? Growing this soft skill allows you to take your career wherever you want it to go. And you don't have to take my word for it. There are so many, countless credible sources. My go-to, Forbes, Fortune, and Harvard. The Muse says executive presence, how it can make or break your career. Forbes, your executive presence determines whether you'll gain action and opportunity. The more significant the opportunity you want C-suite, the more important executive presence. Fortune, executive presence is the ability to engage, align, and move people to act, and it explains why it matters and why you should care. By the way, I've shared all of the links in the material below, so you'll be able to look at that yourself. Working on executive presence, and just the two examples that I gave you above, what did that mean for Alex? In 3 months of Alex working on his communication skills, he was noticeably different. In 5 months, he became CFO. He got the position of CFO. Salary, base salary, doubled with a 50% bonus. Stock options went from 100K to 1.1 million. But more than that, he loves everything about his new role. And as part of a global rollout strategy for an exciting new product, he loves what he does. Example number 2, Sam, the guy that had the phenomenal success that could never get the promotions. In a short period of time, working on his communication skills, both with the clarity framework and high impact storytelling, he was able to get the promotion and move into a division that he loves, which is AI. It's transformational. It's a game changer. Person that I haven't talked about yet, Brenda. She's why I based this scenario, because I'm working with her, and she's a senior director. 5 years in the position of senior director. Always applying for the position of VP, never getting it. When I met Brenda, she was frankly ticked off, cynical, and ready to quit. She felt invisible, undervalued, unappreciated, working on these skills in a short period of time. For the first time ever, Brenda's boss came to her and said, the position of VP is opened up and I think that you should apply. And Brenda said, why now? And her boss said, we think you're ready. Not only her boss, but her boss's boss. So why do you need it? Because then 95% of the power is within you. Today I'm going to teach you our trade secrets, the proprietary stuff that I developed that really helped the people that I mentioned previously move into the exact positions that they want, and many, many others. And the first is called the clarity framework. Normally, I have to tell you, I would spend 1 hour, 1 full hour, explaining it. It takes time to understand that, but we're going to fly through this material at lightning speed. The second is high impact storytelling. Both I would take an hour for. We teach a 12-week communication course that the people that I mentioned about have taken and have had great success. One is building communication. Executive presence is 2 things, communication and emotional intelligence. All of the lessons that we teach, inspirational speaking, if you want to inspire confidence, Forbes, 2 words, 3 times, to be that inspirational presence, then you have to grow the ability to become an inspirational speaker. All of these lessons fall within the clarity framework. They all use the clarity framework. The only one that doesn't is listen like an executive. A lot of people think that listening means that you're just actively listening and you hear the other person and you understand what they're saying. But listening is a lot more than that. It's making the other person feel heard and understood. And there are tools to use to create that connection. The second 12-week course that we teach is emotional intelligence. Most people are very familiar with the concept of emotional intelligence. It's creating a better and greater understanding of yourself and others so that you can create stronger bonds, collaboration, and connections. How to relate to somebody that is your polar opposite, emotional intelligence. The two combined, growing communication and emotional intelligence, is magical. So the clarity framework, what is it? It's not only how to communicate clearly and succinctly, but with the right information. I want to talk about how high-functioning senior leaders think, how they think, where they live, and how they communicate. If you're talking C-suite, VP, here's where they live. most of the time. It's at the 30,000-foot view. Okay, it's the big picture. That's how they communicate. Think about Cliff Notes. Most of us are familiar with the concept of Cliff Notes. If you take a 400-page book and you turn it into 20 pages, and you pull out, Cliff Notes will pull out the most important themes, ideas, subjects, and topics, and condense it into 20 pages. That is the clarity framework. It's the big picture. Now, imagine if in this scenario, somebody said to you, guy with a 400-page book, what was that book about? And you open it up and you start reading it word for word. That's not what they asked. That's not what they wanted. The clarity framework helps you to speak like an executive. It makes you more relatable to executives. When people get into enormous detail, painstaking detail, if you have a person on your team who, when they communicate, talks in a lot of detail, unnecessary detail, rambles, it can reduce the productivity on your team. And if you have more than one, it can reduce it exponentially. Noriko asked John, hey, John, did you get the analysis for A and B? And they're in finance. And John says, you wouldn't believe what it took for me to gather this data. It was in 27 different sources. And then they were inputting with different criteria. There were 3 different kinds of software. And it keeps going. Now, Noriko was feeling stressed. She begins thinking, I have so much to do. I'm on a tight deadline. I need this now. It reduces the productivity on your team. If you have more than one rambler, then productivity can be greatly reduced. How many of you have a rambler on your team? I hope that you swipe and vote. Scan the code, the QR code, and vote. So do you have a rambler on your team? Please vote. What do you do when you have a rambler on your team? If you're under a tight deadline, seriously tight deadline, and you're talking with an extreme rambler, and you can't do your work until you get the information from them, and so on down the line, what do you do? Do you do nothing? Do you wait for a little while and then politely interrupt? Or do you stop them immediately? Ask the question again. Please vote Women of Black Girls Soft. I want to hear what you have to say. The clarity framework uses the same organization and discipline when talking that you use when writing. You have an opening statement, which is a thesis, subjects, and bullet points, which fill in the story, the important parts of the story, and a conclusion, which restates your thesis. Simple, right? Takes months to years to master. Now, some people have asked me, Kim, when I write, I have all of the time in the world. I can take my time, choose the right words, but I'm answering questions or talking. That's in real time. How is this possible? The harder you work, the more quickly you'll improve. I see it in my mind. Typically, before you answer a question, you have 3 to 5 seconds. And I hope I get some of your questions today. 3 to 5 seconds. The more you practice, the more quickly you'll improve. I see it in my mind. I see the thesis and the clarity framework. For your opening statement, you want to use vivid words, descriptions, and imagery whenever possible. Specific data points and metrics. And you want to have a clear point of view. The story uses bullet points. Now, each subject has one topic. Bullet points fill in the story under each subject and have no more than 3 sentences, and all sentences end with periods. A lot of people that I work with want to have 20 sentences that are really, tied together with ends, just one short sentence. And a conclusion simply restates your thesis. So I want to give you an example. An undersheriff that I worked with named Sarah in San Francisco works for an organization, senior director, and their organization serves the homeless. She's an undersheriff. So people would say, hey, Sarah, how was your event last weekend? And she would say, great. That's it, great. Their organization could serve a couple or could serve several thousand. They wanted to know more than great. So here's an example of the clarity framework at work. My opening statement, our event last weekend was a great, phenomenal success. Okay, now subject number 1. One subject, one topic, no more than 3 sentences. Subject number 1, attendance. We had over 15,000 unhoused people attend, and about 25% of those were under the age of 25. Subject number 2, food. We served over 15,000 hot meals with soups, salads, desserts, and your choice of 3 different entrees. We gave out over 30,000 bags of ready-made meals. Each bag contained several days' worth of food. Subject number 3, services. We had over 40 services, which included free haircuts, new clothing, counseling, housing, advocacy, and more. The most popular service by far were our showers. Each had warm water, clean towels, soap, shampoo, and privacy. Subject number 4, fun. There was live music. People were singing along, smiling, and clapping. Many of the kids were dancing, and so were some of the adults. Conclusion. And that is why our event last weekend was phenomenal. Compare the information that I gave you to great. Great doesn't answer the question. The clarity framework provides the right amount of information. Now, imagine if I'd gone into excruciating detail in any one of these topics. You know, I picked the top 5 topics, but I could have talked about all kinds of things. But imagine if I talked at length about all 40 services, one by one, you know, and then describe them. Everyone in detail. Haircuts included beard trimming. We had 4 barber chairs and 12 volunteer stylists and barbers that rotated in shifts. This could take hours. Don't go into excruciating details. Stay at the 30,000-foot view. Also, notice what I didn't include. What a lot of people do is somebody will say, hey, Sarah, how was your event last week? And then Sarah will say, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the amount of red tape that it took to pull that off. Seriously, we spent hours, a team of 3 at the city, probably more than 40 hours. Or you wouldn't believe what it took to organize the volunteers for this event. That wasn't the question, even though that is what they may have been thinking about. The question was, how was your event last weekend? So what do you think of the clarity framework? Is it understandable? Do you sort of get it? Does it make sense to you? I know that we're flying very, very quickly, but I know that you're a really bright group. Opening statement is your thesis. You have bullet points, subjects, and 3 sentences to describe one topic. Short and succinct. Conclusion is super simple. Restates your thesis. Vote. Let me know if it's making sense to you. This is speed education. Speed. The second is high impact storytelling. This is how to capture their attention and keep it. The gold standard of communicating today is something called the STAR format. It often results in failure when interviewing, when showcasing your project's success, or making a case for why you should be promoted. And here's why. What the STAR format stands for is situation, task, action, and result. Now, notice that result is last. The reason that Sam could never get promoted is because he never was able to get to his accomplishment. He was talking about the backstory. Why would you save the best for last? I mean, aside from desserts, why would you save the best for last? How many of you have used the STAR format? How do you think I got this job? Never heard of it. How many of you know about this? The clarity framework showcases results 3 times. Actually, more than that. It's in the entire story. But it's the statement up front. Okay? It's in your thesis. It's in your story, and it's in your conclusion. The clarity framework isn't the opposite of the STAR. It's just completely different. It's radically different. So how do you create a captive opening? Look for the most significant pieces of information. Look for impact. What impact did you have on your organization, on the employees, on customers? Begin at the end. Start with results and work backwards. Look at the numbers, metrics, and data points in a variety of ways to come up with your opening statement. Again, here are examples of the 2 people. When I pushed Sam, come on, give me an opening statement. The CEO believed in me is what he came up with. No, That's good, but this is better. I accomplished in 14 weeks what a team of 30 could in 18 months, developing and releasing a new software, which resulted in 20 million plus in sales. The first statement is good, and the second is better. Alex's statement, I helped increase margins by 2%, compared to I was pivotal in saving a 70-year-old company from bankruptcy and keeping 1,700 employees by increasing margins by $10 million. There's really no comparison. High impact storytelling. So we're going to fill in the story for I was pivotal in saving a 70-year-old company from bankruptcy because time. Subject number 1, situation. Our company had been losing money for years. We're at a critical point. If our financials didn't improve, we'd have to declare bankruptcy. Situation. Subject 2, persuade. I had to convince the CFO that financial regression analysis was necessary. He finally agreed. Together, we communicated with the CEO and board, who were skeptical and thought it was a needless endeavor. After several discussions, highlighting the potential benefits, they agreed. Subject 3, discover. It took me weeks to conduct a thorough analysis. The data gave me insight into 6 areas of inefficiency and waste. This information was critical for our turnaround. Subject 4, action. We brought these findings to the CEO on board, who took immediate action. Eliminating these inefficiencies increased our margins by $10 million. It moved us from the red to the black. Conclusion. That is how I helped save our 70-year-old company from bankruptcy. So I want to check in with you. Where are you? Where are you at? I wish we had more time so that I could give you real-time results. Do you understand how high-impact storytelling fits inside the Clarity Framework? Everything, all communication fits inside the Clarity Framework, from how was your weekend to tell me why you would be a phenomenal senior leader. Everything. Yes, I do. Kind of. Not really. We want to leave time for Q&A, and I also have a case study that I really want you to do. I love this quote. And isn't it true? Ladies of Microsoft, are you with me? Believe in yourself. You are braver than you think, more talented than you know, and capable of more than you imagine. This is my challenge case study. I challenge all of you to try. We're not going to have time today, but I challenge you to try. Read through the case study. Typically, when I receive information, this is 1/100th of how people tell it to me. Read through the case study, and what would be your high-impact storytelling statement? What would you use? Then, what would be your subjects? How would you fill in the story? Because this is a true example. This is something Deep really achieved. And his company was acquired. So he was looking for his next position as CFO. Scan through and tell me what your opening statement would be and what your story would be. So I guess we're going to open this up for questions. I don't have chat capability, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this. How are we going to do this, guys?
All right, Kim, so there have been so many questions that came in. Hopefully we can get through some of them. How can we practice the communication skills that you highlighted?
Oh my gosh, it's totally part of my presentation that I didn't have time to get to. Thank you for that question. Clarity Framework honestly, it took me years to master, years. What I would do is begin in casual conversations and make a goal of two subjects and filling it in with all communication, two points. Don't go to 5. Within that Clarity Framework, you could have up to 10 points. I wouldn't go longer than that, but you can. But I would begin practicing this today. Today, in your casual conversations. What you do this weekend? Practice in your home life, casual conversations, and when you feel more confident, begin to practice the Clarity Framework at work. Let's start with 2. Start today, because this is how you can build your executive presence, your communication strength. Please start today. Tina, next question.
Someone's asking, any guidance for people early in career to have executive presence?
You know, that's a great question. Executive presence, people think that it comes naturally to people as they get older. It just grows. They just develop it. That's not the case. There are some people that are very young that have this quiet confidence and authority. And there are some people that are in the late stages of their career that are extremely insecure. So don't assume that just because you're a new professional that you don't possess some of these skills. But how can you start growing it today? You can begin by practicing your communication skills. Whenever you have an opportunity to step up, to speak, to showcase, they could be the best and brightest, doing great things, and no one knows about it. Why? Because they're afraid to speak in front of senior leadership. They want somebody else to speak for them. So that takes your phenomenal accomplishments and hides it because only you know about it. The way that you can begin growing your executive presence, growing your confidence, is stepping up. Showing courage, and courage is not the lack of fear. It's having fear and doing it nonetheless. I used to be terrified of public speaking. How about that? Terrified. I would shake and sweat and turn bright red. It was awful. It took me years to conquer it. When you have this fear, when you have the ability to showcase your work, to talk in front of senior leaders, do it. And don't assume that just because you're a younger professional, that you don't already possess some of these skills. Next question.
Yeah, courage is not the lack of fear. I really like that, Kim. So the next question is, what are some things not to do while trying to establish your executive presence?
Some things not to do. When I say to take the opportunities to speak in public, whenever you have the opportunity, take the opportunity. But don't do that. So what not to do? Unprepared. Just like for today's event, even though there was technical glitches and issues, I was extremely prepared. So what not to do is don't say that, yeah, I'd love to take that speaking gig, or I would love to lead this project when you're not ready and you don't have the skills yet. I would love to mentor this person when you're not ready. When you're going to step into a role, do it with all that you have and make sure that you have the skill sets. Put the time in and the practice in. So be brave, right? It's okay to have the fear. Be courageous. But what not to do is don't step into anything new unprepared. Another thing not to do, this is a double negative. Don't not do something that you're afraid of every single day. Do something that scares you every single day. How are you going to grow? Because everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything. For me, terrified of public speaking, freedom, fun, joy, success. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. So, double negative, don't not do something that scares you every day. Do something that scares you every single day. Tina.
Do you have any tips on how introverts can demonstrate speaking up in meetings? Sometimes comments are already said by others, and I don't want to talk just for the sake of talking. It sounds like we need to talk even if it doesn't add value.
Oh, no. Here's the thing. Again, almost everyone that I work with, there's a rare exception. They're all introverts. All of them are introverts. And guess what? When you're quiet in meetings, you have valuable insight and information that your team wants and needs to hear. And if fear is silencing you, it's not only hurting you, it's hurting your team. When you speak up at meetings, it sounds like do something that scares you every day. You're afraid of that. Like I was once terrified of public speaking. It's terrifying, right? Okay. And so that is outweighing what you see as adding value to the meeting. But the truth is that you have valuable insight and information that your team wants and needs to hear. And for you, how did I get to the other side of fear when I was terrified, extreme introvert, terrified of speaking? By doing it a lot. The more often you do it, the more quickly you'll improve. Now, maybe if you think that everything's been said and you want to talk for the sake of talking because people on your team have already said it, maybe you can challenge yourself to start talking earlier, before the points were made, right? Instead of waiting until the end. They've already talked about this and they've already talked about that. There's nothing more to talk about. What if you were to challenge yourself to speak up at the beginning and practice using the clarity framework, what you're going to say? Practice. Tina?
All right, so since we're at time, I just wanted to close with these last questions. So many people in the audience are interested in getting a link to your PowerPoint, and some were also wondering how to learn more about your classes.
So the best way to reach out to me, guys, and thank you so much, and I honestly would love to work with female Microsoft professionals. So the best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn, and that can provide you with more information about my classes there. And yeah, I'm really excited about the direction that we're going because, you know, we're moving from individual one-on-one, which is has more cost barriers for a lot of people, to group coaching. And one of the classes that we teach are for leaders that have people that are really detailed, kind of holding up their group. You know, we also work with corporations, but I'm really excited to be teaching this in a group format because then it can reach more people, help more people, you can grow more quickly, and it reduces the cost. Tina?
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, thank you so much, Kim. I learned so much today and hope the audience did as well. And I included your LinkedIn in the chat for the audience to go and visit. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tina. And thank you, ladies, fabulous, fantastic Microsoft females. Thank you so much.